when Jurassic World comes out with a fully functioning park, with a wild hybrid dinosaur, and the subsequent sequels, Fallen Kingdom with the volcano and dinosaurs in the wild with Dominion. These are the stories that I told in my basement with my toys.
Hello and welcome back to Road to Rebirth. My name's Roland Squire. I hope you've enjoyed these past few episodes where I've dug into a little bit behind the scenes maybe, or the animals of Jurassic Park. What I wanted to do was to try and recreate the agonising wait for Jurassic World between Jurassic Park 3. So I hope you've enjoyed that, and it was slightly more enjoyable than it was for me during those years. Today I'm bringing you a fab interview with Brad Jost, host of the Jurassic Park Podcast, which celebrates its 10th anniversary this year. He is such a fun and engaging character in the community, and he has so much love for this franchise, and he exudes all of that in this interview. So without further ado, let's get into Jurassic World from 2015. Please welcome to the podcast Brad Jost. Hi Brad, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, thank you for having me. I know it's been a long time coming, and I'm excited to chat today. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. I'm going to first off ask you about your excitement for Rebirth. What scale are you on?
It's an interesting scale. I think I'm very hyped. Obviously, very hyped for the movie. It's been such a weird trajectory, I think, for this movie, coming off of Jurassic World Dominion, and just, knowing that they'll continue the franchise in some way, but at that time, they're clearly telling you, this is it. This is the end. This is the last one we'll ever get, or whatever. That's kind of the vibe they were giving us. So I wasn't prepared for a new movie, emotionally, technically. I had no, I was not prepped at all, ready for this movie. So then when they start to talk about, oh, there's going to be a new one, it all felt like very confusing, and at sometimes it felt like, oh, this is going to be really rushed. I hope we can get this going right. Then you start to see the pieces of who's involved, and then you get that confidence, right? So I've got that confidence with David Kapp. Really got confidence there. Gareth Edwards is one of my favorites these days. So I've got a lot of confidence that, and obviously the people that are in the movie too, tons of confidence with them. I think obviously canonically speaking is more so where my questions lie,
right,
my less hype side. It's kind of wondering, okay, well, I hope we get enough explanation for this. I think we saw recently that the movie is going to be 2 hours and 14 minutes or something like that. So plenty of time for a lot of exposition to give us a lot of information that we need. But I'm just hoping that they do so and don't just skim over those canonical tidbits that we all are questioning right now. I mean, maybe general audiences don't necessarily care. When we see a different dinosaur design, we're like, why?
Yeah.
What's going on there? What's going on with this? What is this island in general? So there's a lot of questions, plus the whole mutant of it all. There's a lot of things I need to have ironed out a little bit. But I dig what they're doing. I think I'm really hyped about the marketing that they're doing right now.
Yeah.
I've been saying this a lot recently, that it feels different than before. Before they would kind of go all out with these movies. And they are. Certainly there's a lot of stuff out there right now for this movie, but all we've gotten is the same few scenes over and over again. And I kind of appreciate that, but at the same time, I obviously want to see more. But for years now, I've been saying, stop showing us everything.
Yeah.
And they're doing it now. And I'm also clamoring for the other side again. So, but I think they're doing a good job. They're getting us hyped. They're keeping us in check with everything that they're showing us so far. And I think it's going to be good. I'm really excited.
Yeah. No, I think you covered off exactly how I'm feeling about this.
Nice.
Yeah. How does it stack up to maybe your excitement for Jurassic World, say 10 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, look, completely different experience altogether. I mean, that was 14 years or whatever of nothing, and just thinking about what that movie is going to be, going through just years and years of that. And then the hype level was wild. I mean, that was at a time where we're going to have new Star Wars. We're going to have new Jurassic.
Yeah.
Marvel's doing its thing at its height and stuff. And it was very exciting to have Jurassic come back into the fold, after so many years away. Yeah, it was huge. I mean, you can't really compare to now, because now we've we're on our fourth, installment now
Hmm.
of the Jurassic World saga, and the excitement is obviously there, but it's just like it's hard to compare those two moments, when you had nothing. And then all of a sudden now we've got everything we need. We've got
Yeah.
all the toys, we've got all the merchandise. I've got no more room for any more merchandise or toys. Like, so it's a completely different experience these days.
It's amazing what 10 years can do, and a billion-dollar franchise suddenly being part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and they've been treating it pretty well, I think. Obviously, like, I think along the way I would have liked to have seen things done differently
Hmm.
here or there with other material and maybe the movies or TV
Yeah,
shows and things like that. But I think what we have gotten are things that I'm really appreciative of. So I really like all those things.
nice. So, talking about Jurassic World today, and I was wondering whether you could kick us off with a synopsis for the film.
All right, so let me just wing it here. So Jurassic World, it's a park that's been in operation for 10 years, and if you head into the offices of Jurassic World, you'd find that people aren't coming to the parks. They aren't excited for the way they're presenting their dinosaurs these days. So, what does Jurassic World need to do? They need to reinvent the wheel a little bit, and they need to put hybrids out there. Something that will get people very excited about dinosaurs again. Something bigger, scarier, with more teeth. And of course, along the way, we meet a few different characters, and some family members pop up from time to time. But overall it's literally just, hey, how are we going to deal with the dawn of hybrid dinosaurs and the problems that creates for the park workers, for the park itself, for the guests. And we ultimately see the downfall of a iconic park that we've been waiting for so long. And it's a sad day, but yeah, I would say that's a decent enough premise. It's not
Yeah,
the entire thing, but
that's nice. No, really good. I really enjoyed that. What were your so Jurassic Park 3, 2000? How old were you in 2001 Jurassic Park 3?
Uh, I was in high school, so I was probably like 15,
Okay,
16, something like that, I
yeah,
think.
it's the
Maybe
same
yeah,
age as
somewhere in there.
yeah. How was it after that film? And kind of, did you anticipate that the next one wouldn't be 14 years away?
Well, yeah, I mean, like when that movie came out, I was still, I think, in my prime, like Jurassic hype years, after the Jurassic Park and the Lost World. My talk about hype level was wild for Jurassic
Hmm.
Park 3, and then it started to dwindle a little bit as I saw like some of the marketing and stuff like that. And then when I saw the movie, that is unfortunately the first movie I remember really sitting in the theater for Jurassic wise. And I had a tough time with that one. So knowing that the reception was a little bit different than the other movies and that it didn't really make as much money, it was bound to be like kind of a slow period, I think, for a return to Jurassic, but I never expected them to take that long.
No,
Um, I don't think anybody really did. It just we all followed the news cycles. We all
I
checked,
was
and,
just
and that was like,
constantly checking.
yeah, that was like the dawn of like movie news on the internet. I feel like
Hmm.
where we're all
Yeah,
really like we're just introduced to different new websites. Like we had never visited these sites, and we're like, okay, this is going to be my go-to website for checking movie news. And I did that with a bunch of them. I think there was uh comingsoon.net or
oh,
something, and
I
like Dark
just popped into my
Horizons, or
head when you were saying that.
yeah, Joe Blow. So there was a lot of different like movie sites back then that I frequented. And yeah, I was just checking those for ages, just wondering like when's it gonna come next? But 14 years later was not on my radar. That's crazy.
Yeah, I remember the rumor that Keira Knightley was going to be in it for a time, and she was going to be John Hammond's granddaughter. I don't know whether it's going to be Lex at some point that she was going to play. I've been kind of delving back at using the Internet Archive, diving into those old pages just to see what those rumors were like, reminiscing and feeling the stress of Jurassic Park 4 and the wait for it all over again. Um,
Yeah. I was thinking about doing that recently too. And one thing dawned on me, like I completely forgot that like and I don't remember the year or whatever it was, but like when Michael Crichton died, I feel like
yes.
that was like a there was like a finality to it, and the way that they spoke about it was like, I don't think we're gonna be doing it
No.
anymore, because we
Yeah.
had been following it for years, like waiting and just waiting and waiting. And there'd been news tidbits here and there that like the cast members or, oh, they're talking about maybe returning or whoever. And they're working on something. Joe Johnston's doing something or, so people were actually doing stuff. But then when that happened, it was like, oh man, I think this is over. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
if we're going to get anything else. Cause there is some finality to that. And you think about like, okay, well, should we continue this story without the person who was the person who created the entire concept of it all? And I know the movies are different, but like, and of course, Jurassic Park 3 not really involved in any of that for the most part, but it felt weird to continue, and I
Yeah.
think that's what they were feeling when they were trying to come up with stories and
Yeah.
ideas. So that
Yeah.
was a weird time, I think, for sure.
Yeah. And Stan Winston dying as well,
Mm.
roughly around the same time. And I think Kathleen Kennedy came out and said, look, I think they'd been bugged so much for news over the past years that they were just like, look, just leave it alone. And then I think Spielberg's at Comic-Con and he's just like, yeah, we've got a script, it's all working, and haven't forgotten it.
Yeah, complete shell shock when you find that oh, they are going to
Yeah.
be doing something, and that was that I think Jurassic World, when that movie eventually did come around, in the years leading up to it, and however much that changed along the way, it kind of reinvigorated everything. Everybody got excited again, and I mean that started up my fandom again because, like I said, Jurassic Park 3 soured things a little bit for me. I really do appreciate that movie these days, but I think during that time there were other stories being told. Lord of the Rings was
Yeah.
huge for me.
Yeah.
I started to get into other film franchises and different things, and even then Marvel coming in 20 or
Yeah.
2008. So there was a lot of different projects to get excited about in those dark years. So
Yeah.
yeah, I was okay for a little while, but then Jurassic World comes around and you're like, "Oh, all right, we're back in this. This could be good again. What are we doing? All right, now you got to start talking about it with new people that you've never
Yeah.
met before. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, it really started something."
And it seemed that Spielberg finally landed upon, because he had the John Sayles script. I'm not sure whether have you ever read that?
Yeah, it's been a few years, and it was a wild read. Absolutely, a wild read.
Yeah.
And I do think back to that, like every now and then, when, especially doing a podcast and when you have to do a podcast for all year long, leading up to a movie, you start
Hmm.
to dive into a lot of those weird things that were in
Yeah.
random scripts and stuff like that and concept art. So that was one that I remember diving into quite a bit. Even more recently, I think that one started off. I don't know if it was the beginning. I think it was the beginning, but there was like a baseball or t-ball sequence, I
Yeah.
think, in that story
Yeah.
where
True.
like pteranodons or something had come and attacked the game, and I thought about for years how like excellent of an opening sequence that would be, and
Mm.
even to the point where Jurassic World, I don't think I've talked about it too much for Rebirth, but for Dominion, it was like, oh, this would be the perfect introduction to
Yeah.
Dominion. Like, dinosaurs are in the wild now officially. Like, yeah, pteranodons were out for a little while, but like now they're out there and they can attack like a little t-ball game. It would have been a brutal kind of introduction. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe none of the kids had to get hurt or anything, but like it would have been really cool. Not a lot of the rest of that, but that sequence for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. The rest of it would be very different. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that script had human dinosaur hybrids and all sorts of stuff going on. Spielberg definitely likes to push the science fiction side of it, I think.
Yeah, and I'm okay with it because look, it's Steven Spielberg. Let him do what he wants to do. Let him cook. He's been at the forefront of this, with the hybrids and everything. And then when you start to hear that he's working directly with David Kep, it's like, okay, I know who's in charge
Hmm. Yeah.
of all the mutant stuff that we're seeing nowadays. It's
Yeah.
like he just wants to get to these concepts, and I'm cool with it. So like, I feel like I hear a lot of people be like, "Oh, that's not very Jurassic," and I'm like, but it is. It's like
Yeah.
it's at the heart of it,
Yeah.
And I appreciate Steven Spielberg for sticking to his guns and doing what he's wanted to do for a while.
Yeah. And I've said this several times on the show before, but he, like, Jurassic has a very special place in his heart because I think it's his. George Lucas gave him Indiana Jones. It was, George Lucas who came up with the idea and brought it to Spielberg. And obviously Spielberg, added so much to that. but Jurassic is something that he worked with Michael Crichton on, and so that I think he just loves it so much. It's his baby.
I hope so. I mean, it seems like he loves it. I mean, he's a tough one to read because he is involved in so many things. He
Mhm.
executive produces like almost everything. It seems like, his name's attached to something. And I've heard people say like, oh, look, his name's attached to this or that, and they're losing confidence in Steven Spielberg. I'm like, what? Are you serious? Like,
Yeah.
okay, like some things didn't pan out, but like let's not lose confidence in that. So I
No.
have full confidence in him and David Kep at this point. So
And I think with Jurassic World, he found Rick Jaffa and Amanda Silver, who were the first people to really crack that script for Jurassic World, who'd just done the Planet of the Apes reboot, I think, just maybe a year or so before.
oh, is that what it was? Yeah, okay. And yeah, it kind of has that DNA to it, right? I mean, we've kind of talked about that for a while, how like in the later installments of Jurassic World, it would be
Yeah.
so close. We could almost do what Planet of
Hmm.
the Apes was doing, but it's like it feels like two on a nose, and we literally just got that. We can't really do the exact same thing. Who knows? Maybe we are still. I don't know.
Yeah,
Could still be
maybe.
doing it.
But yeah, clearly Spielberg came with the idea, which I think he did with Jurassic Park 3. And so he comes up with core bits that he wants to be in a Jurassic film. So he wanted a fully functioning park, he wanted a genetically modified dinosaur, and also the weaponization of the raptors. That seemed to be his three ingredients that he gave to the writers and be like, go and do,
Mhm.
go and do that.
And those are perfect ingredients. Like those are the things I really like about the movie. And I know it's not everybody's cup of tea with the weaponized dinosaurs of it all, but like I really do like what they were going for there. While maybe it wouldn't have made a ton of like legitimate sense, sometimes people in power don't make a lot of sense, you know?
No.
That happens
No,
often.
I really like
Yeah.
that element actually of it. And since watching it again, I mean, what was your so sitting down in a cinema 2015 and watching this for the first time, what are your memories of the first watch?
Okay, well, that was a pretty significant one for me because, I had started the podcast like a little bit before that, and it just so happened that I was getting married that same weekend.
Wow.
We had booked like a wedding venue in Pennsylvania, and it was up in like the mountains and stuff. And we had there was like little cabins and things on the property, so we were staying up there for several days. While we were up there, like some family members obviously came up, like my cousin was there and my sister was there. We all went out there to the movie theaters. We found a theater, bought the tickets, and we went to the first showing. It's like, yeah, I'm getting married, but like, hey, we also got to go see Jurassic World like 2 days before or whatever. So it was a big deal, and I just remember sitting in that theater, and at the time, starting the podcast and everything, I'm like trying to record as much audio as I can because I had started it with my cousin, so the two of
Hmm.
us, and we're sitting there in the theater talking about it. Like on the way there, we're talking about it. On the way home, we're talking about it. Listening to the score, so it was a really great moment to kind of sit down and watch that movie for the first time, and feel so excited and tense. Like there's a few movies that like really get you like with chills and
Hmm.
stuff right before the movies
Hmm.
start, and the anticipation, and that was absolutely one of them.
Amazing. That's a really amazing story. I saw it at the BFI IMAX. Really, there really wasn't many people in there, but I was just so hyped for it. I'd read all the articles, I'd seen all the clips, I was ready, and I felt a bit muted from it. And I've
Yeah,
mentioned this before, but I think I was waiting for a film that was just never going to turn up. I
yeah.
was somebody from Jurassic Park 3 era, and this film was going to be continuing that story. But too much time had passed for that to still be the case, I think. And it took me a couple of watches. I saw it a couple of times at the cinema, and once I saw it on like a Saturday afternoon with a load of kids and families, and hearing their reaction, I was just like, oh, okay, I get it now. I understand this, and they taught me how to get on board with the film.
Yeah, there is something to say about seeing a Jurassic movie, a
Hmm.
dinosaur movie with like kids and families, and it's really something else. And I think
Yep.
you really have to remember that when you're watching these movies, especially
Yep.
if we were that same age, during Jurassic Park 3, that means we were, 7, 6,
Hmm.
7, 8 years old during that time when Jurassic Park came out. And that's when it hit us. Not obviously not everybody's in the same age bracket, but like that's when it worked. And it was a science-based movie and very like adult at times, but like it worked so well, and we were kids, and then we followed that up still being kids, and then, obviously, once we're adults a little bit, it's like, okay, our mindset's a little bit different, but you have to put yourself back in those shoes, when you were 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, and I think that really makes a difference. So, when Jurassic World comes out with a fully functioning park, with a
Hmm.
wild hybrid dinosaur,
Yeah.
that's and the subsequent sequels, the Fallen Kingdom with the volcano
Yeah.
and dinosaurs in the wild with Dominion. These are the stories that I told in my basement with my toys. So like that's like exactly what I wanted, and that's the kind of like spirit I get myself into when I'm trying to like watch pretty much any movie. If you listen to any podcast or any of my movie reviews, it's just like I love them. They're all good. Yeah, I like some more than others, but like I just have a good time with them.
Yeah.
So when it comes to watching Jurassic World back then, I was just like in awe of what they were doing. Like seeing that fully functioning park was awesome. Now we didn't get a lot of it, and
Hmm.
you'd brought up a really good point about being from that Jurassic Park 3 era and just wanting to see that story continue because 14 years of thinking of what that next story
Yeah.
is, it's not easy to see a new movie when you've waited 14 years. I mean, we've all dealt with it with Star Wars and with Indiana Jones and stuff like that. There's movies like that where you sit on them for ages, for decades, and you're just like, they can never live up to what you want it to be fully. And I think I've talked about how there, if you make like subtle changes to any of those three Jurassic World movies, they could be even better. And I love them already, but I think like yeah, it all works out the way it is, and I
Hmm.
think, they did
Yeah.
a pretty darn good job while not really connecting the dots in the way that I had hoped, I guess that's a good way to put it because, like you said, there's so many story beats and things that you wanted connected from Jurassic Park 3, so as a follow-up, not a great follow-up per se, but a great reboot, a great restart for the franchise.
It did what it needed to do. Colin Trevorrow, who when he was announced, I was just like, who? You know, I was
Yeah.
just, to be given the keys to this huge franchise, and the pressure he must have felt in a similar way to Joe Johnston taking on Jurassic Park 3, even though he'd done a few films before. But, your second film, I imagine that Colin Trevorrow has a lot of confidence. He comes across as somebody that is full of confidence, and he won over Spielberg in his pitch meeting, and also to have the script from um, Rick Jaffa and Amanda Silver, and then go to Spielberg. Actually, I think we need to rewrite this and start again and push the production a whole year. I mean, that is when I thought, actually, we've got a fan running the ship now. It feels like somebody who's watched this film, who's interested in it. Definitely with Colin Trevorrow.
Until you find out Derek Connolly's writing, and then you're
Yeah,
like, oh, he doesn't even
no,
he might not have even seen the last ones.
no.
Yeah, weird.
It's did you watch Safety Not Guaranteed before watching Jurassic World?
Yeah, I believe I had watched it before. Because yeah, it wasn't like a lot of stuff he needed to catch up on. Like I know like we're all
Yeah.
kind of doing that now with Gareth Edwards,
Hmm.
rewatching all the stuff that he's made. And there's like 4 or 5 things that you should watch, right?
Yeah.
But like
Yeah.
with Colin Trevorrow, it's like, okay, I watched it. And I think during 2015 there was like him and guys like Josh Trank, and there was probably some others. I'm forgetting who, but like for some reason there was just a movement to get these like up and coming directors in the
Yeah.
seat to see what their fresh take was. And I don't know if it was like purely like a fan based kind of thing. Like these are people who were huge fans when growing
Hmm.
up of these different franchises. So they're going to do a great job, which I agree that could absolutely happen. But like it's still a studio at its heart. So whether
Mm.
Colin wanted to make all the right choices or not, the studio's
Yeah.
involved and there's other people involved. But
Yeah.
I think he did a pretty admirable job, and I really liked Safety Not Guaranteed. So I was excited to see what he was about to do, but I had no
Yeah.
idea what he could do, really,
No, I think it almost feels like a bit of the movement from when Spielberg entered Hollywood, the early 70s, where they were getting,
Yeah.
the old Hollywood was dying off and they needed new blood to come in. And these people who love the golden age of Hollywood were coming in and, doing exciting films that were also making money. And I think maybe somebody like Spielberg is really good at looking at new directors and going, right, I'm going to help you along this journey and get you into, because we need new directors, fresh blood coming in. And who's going to be making films in 50 years time or 40 years, who's going to be the Spielberg in 20 years or 30 years time. So it felt a little bit like that, I think.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, I never really looked at it like that. Like they're like, oh, let's try to reinvigorate everything because we're getting too old for this.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I kind of like that idea because Gareth Edwards was even one of those people.
Yeah.
Like he had only made like one movie or whatever before Godzilla, I think, right? So that's wild. Like that just handing over the keys to these major tentpole franchises, for the summer, and it's like, hope you do a great job. And Gareth has been saying that a lot for Rebirth. It's like, he had the show around George Lucas around the set of Rogue One, and it's like that's a completely different pressure that I don't know that necessarily Steven Spielberg and George Lucas had to do back when they were starting. I don't know. Maybe there was probably some directors or somebody that stopped by and was like, who are these kids? I feel like they would have blown them off more so back in the 70s.
They did. Yeah. Because there's the famous stuff about Spielberg and Alfred Hitchcock, and Hitchcock was on the downturn of his career. Yeah. Spielberg tried desperately to go and have a meeting with Hitchcock, and he was just like, no, I'm not speaking to the guy who made the Fish film. That is a big no.
Oh yeah. That's brutal. At least they were trying to like cultivate, a good prospect for the future, which it really didn't necessarily pan out the way they maybe wanted it to. Gareth Edwards is maybe the one that really worked out of that kind of crew right there.
Yeah.
So luckily for him, he's come back around for us.
I think watching Safety Not Guaranteed and looking at the casting of Jurassic World, Colin wanted comedians, like it seems like, for Jurassic World. So Chris Pratt, people who are good at improv maybe, and making all that exposition feel really light and easy, to deliver all that heavy stuff in a fun way, I think.
Yeah, and I like that. They always say that comedians can be some of the most dramatic actors out there, so they're tapping into something that other people don't have, I guess. But Chris Pratt, he was funny enough, but like not like he's not like Parks and Rec Chris Pratt. It's not Andy Dwyer out there. So while they cast some comedic bits, it wasn't really like a fully comedic movie, which I know a lot of people argue that they Marvelified, is that a word? The universe.
I think it definitely is now.
There's a bit of it, but I think, and I said this recently because when I went to go see Jurassic Park in concert, I think it was, people were like laughing more than I've ever heard people laughing at Jurassic Park. And I sat there and I'm like, I've always laughed at this movie and I've had a great time with this movie and I find it very funny. But like, I didn't realize everybody found it funny. And I was like, okay, like I think, a lot of really hardcore fans might be getting too much in our heads about how serious of a movie it is. And I think there's a lot of comedy in it, and especially The Lost World. Jurassic Park 3 attempted some comedy, I think, but didn't, I don't know, didn't pan out. But I think it doesn't feel that like out in left field for me, the comedy that they brought to Jurassic World. And Jake Johnson's somebody I love. I love that guy. He's so funny.
Yeah.
And I love New Girl and everything he did there. And I follow everything he does still, his podcast and everything. Lauren Lapkus still, like I was literally just watching a video of her just before. She's hilarious. And Bryce Dallas Howard was like, she was making her rounds, right? Obviously in Hollywood, being in Spider-Man 3 and The Village, which was, a huge follow-up after, I think, Signs. I think it was after Signs for M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah.
So that was like a big deal. And obviously Spider-Man 3, big deal. And I just remember her from my sister's off-Broadway play. So my sister was in an off-Broadway show in New York City. And it was this interesting show that was called like House House and Garden. I don't know if the and was in there, but I think it
Hmm.
was just House Garden, and it was like 2 stages with, like, different it was kinda like the Harry Potter thing where you can, like I think you had to, like, see it twice or I don't know, but, like, you had to go twice to see, like, a different version of it, so they would leave
Is this Alan Egborn?
I don't know.
Is
I
that?
have no idea what that is.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, he's a British playwright.
So, like, they would
Yes.
leave the stage, go to the other stage, do their thing over there, and then go to the other stage. It was really interesting, and Bryce was in that, and my sister was there. So, like, we would go to drop my sister off in New York City from New Jersey, and just like be like, "Hey, Bryce," she was just there. She was just at that time she was just Ron Howard's daughter. Like that's all you knew her
Yeah.
as. She was young. She's relatively like similar ages to us, so it's like it was interesting to know that like, oh my god, now she's gonna be in Jurassic. That's wild. That was
Ah,
cool.
amazing. That's a connection I didn't think. That's an incredible story.
Yeah, my dad apparently got really like buddy with Ron Howard every now and then, so that's pretty funny
Nice.
to me.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think the best, actually, looking at the three films, I think Chris Pratt, I think the excitement going into watching that film because of Guardians of the Galaxy was so high for Chris Pratt, and he is really good. But I think the one with the actual arc over all the three films is Bryce Dallas Howard's character. And I think her growing as a director, and although lots of people would like her to come and direct a Jurassic, I
Oh
think
yeah.
that would be an amazing idea. Looking now with 10 years on, when I rewatched it for this podcast and just looking at Bryce Dallas Howard, I was like, she has a really difficult role to play because she has to play this. It's a little bit two dimensional, I think, in places, but she, on the written page, I imagine, but she does manage to add a lot of humor and life and humanity to that character.
Yeah, I think she got a little too much hate for that role, and obviously the heels of it all. But like it
Yeah.
was all choices that she wanted. Like she was in charge of those choices, and she really brought I think a good voice to that character. And it was like you said, it was a little bit one-sided and one-dimensional, but like they tried to add in some dimension with the Evolution of Claire novel, and it still was like
Hmm.
it was still interesting because like you're still kind of making this leap of why she wanted to do what she's doing in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. There is a bit of a jump there, but like they tried to set the stage as best they can to really do that. But I do think she had a great arc overall throughout the trilogy, and I
Hmm.
do like that character quite a bit. And I like just to think of her, who she was in Jurassic World, and then the white outfit. Which Mattel, what are you doing? Give us that toy. And just such a pristine look and haircut and everything. And then to see her
Yeah.
running on rooftops, parachuting out of the sky in Jurassic World Dominion. I love
Yeah.
that arc for her. Like I absolutely love that.
Because Chris Pratt kind of disappears, I think, through this as the films go on. His, particularly by Dominion, I think Sir not appearing in this film. I always think of the Monty Python joke from Holy Grail. Because if you watch the theatrical version, I was just like, how many lines has he had? It's just like hardly any. It feels, particularly by the end of the film, like blimey. But yeah, when watching the extended, it does make a bit more sense. But Bryce is almost the opposite. She becomes more to the fore.
Yeah, I mean, it was her at the center of the
Hmm.
story in Jurassic World. It was about her family showing up to the
Hmm.
island, and the fact that she was the way she was, and she needed to kind of get out of that version of herself and be a little bit more, or have a little bit more empathy for other people and dinosaurs and her family, and actually care about things. And by the end of it, she learned a lesson, which is nice. And she I know some people will argue about how, like, her trajectory of like wanting to be a mother. It was it was its own thing, but I think there's a good story there at the heart of it.
What do you think about the story being similar to Jurassic Park? Because we had Force Awakens, that's it, and how similar that was to A New Hope. And I don't know, I think Jurassic World does a better job of paying tribute to Jurassic Park. I think that than when I first sat down and watched Force Awakens, and kind of I was just comparing it too much to A New Hope all the time.
I didn't get in my head with that. I think what bothered me about the Force Awakens was more so like J.J. Abrams' mystery box of it all, which I do think
Hmm.
kind of comes into Jurassic a little bit. But like they talked about so much behind the scenes that like, wow, hey everybody, we want you to know we are going practical. Everything is real, because of
Mm.
all the hate that the prequels got and everything. So that just bothered me so much. So I wasn't really connecting those dots as thoroughly, but it is obviously very much like the same thing. It's like this person who is off on a random world finds some hope and joins
Mhm.
the resistance in this case, and it's the same thing, and then there's a big battle at the end. I get it, story beat wise, and a lot of the storytelling is very, very different, of course, but
Mhm.
Jurassic is in my eyes less of a copy. And I know people have said that about
Mhm.
Lost World too, that or Fallen Kingdom, that it feels very much like the Lost World. That one, I less connect with that theory, I think. But Jurassic Park and Jurassic World, they feel so very different to me.
Mhm.
I know, like, yeah, kids come to the island, but like we're not trying to prove an island at this point. It's been proven.
Mhm.
There's
Mhm.
dinosaurs that break out, yeah, and it's got similarities, but I just feel like the storytelling is so different that it doesn't like connect in that same way that like The Force Awakens does with Star Wars or A New Hope.
When I was watching it, I was thinking that the best. I d- I still think the first part of the film feels it's too fast. A lot of it, and it doesn't let me like ease myself into the island very much. I want to see more, but I get what they're trying to do with the fact of the people are frantic and just rushing about, and you don't get to see the Tyrannosaur paddock, and the introduction of the Tyrannosaur in that section is I find quite funny now. Everybody just holding up mobile phones, but yeah, I wanted a little bit more of a breather. I think for all of the three world films, and several of us on the that I've spoken about, Lost World and Jurassic Park 3, is having those moments where the film can just stop and we just focus on one thing for 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, I do think just in general, movies these days are lacking that. A lot of movies, so it's a shame because I love those calm discussions that they had in the original Jurassic Park, sitting around a lunch table, just debating
Hmm.
things. No music, nothing happening. It's just calm, no action. Like that stuff
Yeah,
is severely missing, and I think a lot of movies are getting it right nowadays. But that movie, you're right, it keeps going, and Michael Giacchino, I love his score in there, but it
yeah,
never stops, it never gives room to
no,
breathe at all, and he did learn that along the ways. I think there are moments of breath there
hmm,
in the other 2 movies, but this one just literally 100 miles per hour the entire time,
yeah,
and, I was just thinking about it, when you were saying, like, about, like, getting to the island and doing all these things, seeing all these things. You mentioned the cell phones. I was thinking like, "Oh, at least we didn't get, like, if it was made more so today than 2015, we would have gotten a lot of people being like, 'All right, so I am on
yeah,
Jurassic World,' like, which is exactly what Camp Cretaceous did." As I was thinking that, I was like,
yeah.
"Oh, that's exactly what Camp Cretaceous did," because it was a few years later and everything, so they kind of got into that a little bit more. But who am I joking? I would be doing that exact thing if I went to Jurassic World. So
I'd be live
yeah,
streaming
yeah.
from the like Mosasaurus, show, definitely.
But like, but I think they did it in a good way where like, one kid just doesn't care. They're kind of showing that which I don't buy into that at all.
No,
That people like don't care about dinosaurs anymore. And for some reason we're seemingly doing that again. I
yeah,
think they kind of like have had that mission statement pop up a little bit in for Rebirth. So yeah, but I agree. Like the time and the time spent on that shot, like that really amazing shot
hmm,
panning over the park and kind of pushing into the visitor or the Discovery Center. What is
yeah.
it called? Innovation Center. Too many different centers. Discovery Centers in Florida, at Islands of Adventure. I wanted to go and explore every one of those
Yeah,
locations. I really wanted to see what the water park is like, see what the hotels are like, see
yeah,
anything. And like the T Rex, kingdom there. It's like we don't really get to explore that. Yeah, it's just there's so many great areas of that park I would just love to explore deeper. And I've always pushed for
yeah.
like a live action TV show that really doesn't have a ton to do with dinosaurs per se, but like you could show that park in operation. I think that would be really, really cool. But Camp Cretaceous did do a
Hmm.
decent job of showing us some other locations and and stuff, while not fully fleshed out like the movies, it did show us like some expansion. And I've laughed about this before, but Jurassic World Live Tour, when that was on tour doing its thing, there was a scene in there towards the end, I think, and it's got just like gas tanks, like a
Mm-hmm.
gas station, and it's got like a Jurassic
Mm.
World logo on it. And I'm like, yo, that's awesome. There's
Mm-hmm.
a gas tank location. Like that's how
Yeah,
excited I get of like little details like that, expanding the world. So yeah, it rushed into the story of these characters that we had to follow across
yeah,
three separate movies, and didn't necessarily show us everything we wanted to see, I guess,
yeah.
from that
I
point.
For me, I think the film really kicks in when the raptors are let loose to go and attack the Indominus, and you get the
Yeah.
amazing. I really like that reveal. I still enjoy it now. Like to be, oh, it's got rat hair, everybody, but it's such a. I just think it's such a great shot of them realizing it and the raptors turning around, and then you see the head cameras from the raptors, and they're all focusing on Owen. And I
It's
think
so good.
that is what Colin does really well, is those twist moments. And yeah, I think then the film just feels really fun for me. There's really great comedy with the raptors. The raptors are really great when they grab that bloke out the back of the truck. It feels
Yeah.
visceral. It's there's some good jump scares going on. I love the
Yeah.
music. Yeah, I think for me the film really works from that point on.
Like I was saying before, it was me playing with my toys. When I was a kid, we had a toy. It was the what's his name? Oh man, I'm blanking on his name. Hey Carter. Carter. I had to like
Oh
get back
yeah.
into the lost world. Hey Carter. Like so Carter had a motorcycle that like and also there was also the I don't know what his name was, but there was like a guy that like or I don't know who if it did, maybe it didn't come with somebody, but there was a really awesome like motorcycle with a sidecar. So I was playing with
I do
motorcycles
remember that.
with
Yeah.
Jurassic toys all the time. And like that adventure music, bum 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 bum, like having that play while he's driving through the woods, as unrealistic as it is, and like having these dinosaurs next to him. There's an awesome camera shot of like down near the ground when the raptors are running right
Mm,
past the camera and the camera's shaking and rumbling. I love that. That is so incredible and so much fun. And I know a lot of people say the Raptors aren't scary, but like that moment when they're taking out like the engine security or whoever they are, like they're that's
yeah.
scary. That's the kind of scary stuff I think is good for me. Like that's good. I mean, and speaking of like scary, but like Gareth Edwards has been quoted a lot recently of saying that like Jurassic Park is a horror movie, and I don't agree with him at all. And I was glad that like Empire Magazine was like, David Kep doesn't agree with him on that point. I was like, yes, me and David Kep, dude, we're in a line here. But so there's elements of horror in Jurassic Park. So it's not it's not really a gory mess. I know there's one arm, there's some, attacks and things, but I was fine with the amount of scares and
Yeah. It's
attacks and
Spielberg
things.
horror.
Yeah.
I think when I spoke to Derek, we chatted about Jurassic Park and said about the jump scares during that film and the Dilophosaurus, and that scene being probably the most horrific part of for me anyway of Jurassic Park, particularly when it suddenly appears in the car for
Yeah.
for Nedry. I think it's tone more than what happens. I think you don't have to show much. I think you just need to have the moments leading up to it that feel ominous and that you feel unsafe. And I think that's probably what they mean, is the fact of feeling unsafe in this environment and unsafe around like even like large animals like gorillas and stuff. When you see people in a cage with a gorilla and they're just
Oh yeah.
you think that thing can rip you to shreds. You've just got it's
Yeah.
you've just the fear every time I see anything like that. And yeah, I think the bit where the raptors get out and they're rushing around, they feel like animals, they feel like real animals, and I love that. Finally, we're getting, because we don't really get that we get that in Lost
Yeah.
World, but you get the speed of them as well in that
Yeah.
sequence.
Yeah, and you mentioned that guy getting ripped out of the truck. Like that's comedy to me. Like there's a whole part where like Claire is like, I don't know, like hold hands or whatever, and they're like the kids don't know
Yes,
what to do in
yeah,
the back of this truck. Guys getting ripped out. Like there's a lot of comedy and like scary moments to that. So
yeah,
I love that. I love those beats there, and
yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. It's got some good action, and I think it's got it out. It's got it all. It's got the action. It's got some funny stuff. It's got some scares, and it's kind of showing you the world that you wish you had back
Hmm.
in Jurassic
Hmm.
Park. Like how fleshed out it is. So I appreciate what they were doing
Yeah,
there.
and I even, I like the ending, and I think the ending, like the Lost World, all of the misgivings maybe that people had about the film going through, like Jurassic World, when you get to the Main Street scene with the Indominus and Blue and the T Rex coming out, I forget all the flaws with that film during that sequence because you're just like, oh my word, yeah, it feels. I really enjoy it, and I think the music of Michael Giacchino really sells it. It's
Yeah.
big, it's bombastic, it's fun.
Yeah. Oh, the music is so good there. Like it's literally just like battle music, and it's so
Yeah.
good. And yeah, having that all come together, like you've seen the gifs, the pictures, the whatever little clips constantly of that sequence, but when you're watching it after you've watched the whole movie leading up to that, it is so thrilling. It's so fun. And the honestly, like Colin Trevorrow's camera work in that section is
Hmm.
flawless. Like it's really great. Like you think if you watch the camera just kind of moving through that entire set and going through buildings and stuff, it's really cool what he's doing there. And to know that none of that is really actually happening in front of them as they're
Mm.
navigating those streets and the buildings, it's really cool what he did there. So if you haven't, like, go back and watch that, everybody, and just like take a look at the camera work there. It's really interesting. So, but that
Yeah.
is thrilling, and that is a moment I think I really really remember from that first viewing and this is something that like the first trilogy wasn't capable of doing necessarily, like too much, because yes, they could have done it with some of the characters, but they didn't really get you too emotionally attached to different storylines or things too much. But I think in terms of like having a dinosaur come back, like whatever it was, however many years later,
Hmm.
it felt, I felt something, and I was like, oh man, they're gonna kill her off after all this
Yeah.
time. They're gonna.
I
I
thought,
was
oh my god, they're
so
not going to do the same as Jurassic Park 3.
yeah, and look, I didn't care about that at all. Like that was comedy to me. Like
Yeah.
I love the Spinosaurus, so that didn't mean anything to me. It was just a T Rex. It wasn't anything that I
Hmm.
loved. It wasn't anything.
Hmm.
So to have this one be at the center of this battle and literally have its neck in the throat of the the Indominus there,
Yeah.
like it's just, or in the teeth. It was brutal, and I was scared very much so for that dinosaur. I absolutely thought it was going to die, and then to have Blue come out of nowhere in slow mo, as silly as it was, like with that music in particularly,
Yeah.
like, which I don't
Yeah.
understand, but like it was awesome. And then the whole, like the way it was all finished off with the Mosasaurus, that's the moment where I
Yeah.
start to feel bad, and I'm like, oh, I actually feel sympathy
Yeah.
for that creature, just
Yeah.
like Gareth's trying to tell us about the Distortus Rex. There's
Yeah.
something about that's you're going to have some sympathy for it. So that's how I felt about the Indominus after its killing spree, after it
Yeah.
killed people and dinosaurs and wrecked stuff. I still felt bad for it at the end of the day, because it was just a
Yeah.
dog in a cage, basically.
Hmm. And talking about the camera work, actually, you've just sparked me thinking about it. And Colin does a really good job. I think, like Spielberg did in the original, the changing of the perspective. So you go from the kid's point of view to the adult's point of view all the way through Jurassic Park, but rarely do you see the dinosaur's point of view. And I think Colin, in that attack, where you've got the two sets of fights going on, really, you've got the dinosaur fight, and then you've got the people trying to escape it and trying to get involved,
Yeah.
and you see, like, he moves the camera from the T-Rex's point of view down to then into the shops, and you see it from Claire and Owen's point of view, and then you go back, and then actually, yeah, I until you said that, I hadn't really picked up on that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I know like everybody wants the movie to be Jurassic Park, but that will never happen. We will never ever get Jurassic Park again. Sorry, Jurassic World Rebirth is not going to be Jurassic Park again. As good as it could be,
Hmm.
it's not going to be Jurassic Park. It's just not possible. Just the same way as A New Hope is, or The Force Awakens is not going to be A New Hope. So
Hmm.
we can't go back to those moments of getting like the perspective and talking about the beauty and the majesty of revealing dinosaurs for the first time. You can only do that once. So I appreciate Colin trying some new things and doing stuff a little bit differently and showing us that there's new perspectives, there's new ways to view these dinosaurs with names, with
Hmm.
relationships with the dinosaurs. So I appreciated what he was doing there, and I really liked so much of that stuff. I love the Blue and Owen stuff, and the one perspective I absolutely hated though was like the aftermath of the battle with the T-Rex, and there's just that shot from, I guess it's like from like, is it from like Blue's perspective or something? But
Yeah, I
whatever it
think
is, it's
so.
like
Yeah.
it's bad, it's horrible, and like most of the movie looks pretty good, but like that moment looks god awful, and I
Yeah.
don't know
It's a
why they left
weird
that in.
perspective, isn't it?
I don't ever want to see the T-Rex from that
Yeah.
point of view ever again. It
No.
was horrible. But outside of that, I think they've done a phenomenal job of bringing these dinosaurs to life and making them look pretty real. Dominion, like everything looks so good in Dominion, and Rebirth looks like it's going to be even better. Like it's crazy
Hmm.
how good they've
Yeah.
like perfected it over the years.
So how do you think we are now, 10 years later? How do you think this first initial part of the Jurassic World trilogy stands
Well,
up?
for me, if if you want to just bring it from my perspective, I think it stands up so well. I think the movie holds up incredibly well. I watched it again recently, and I was showing my kids all of them actually in like weird orders. I don't know what I was doing, but it's just like whatever, let's just throw something on.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they were in any order, doesn't matter. I think Jurassic World really, really holds up still. It still works on every level. And I think if you talk about like the entire franchise, like I love the Jurassic World franchise. Like I love what they did, and I love that we were able to expand into an animated show, a short film, and I love the scores that they've really held up really well, and they got better and better as they went along, and so I think like they and Jurassic World's an interesting one because the way that Universal has viewed it for so long now, for the past 10
Mhm.
years, I guess now. It's been like their icon, like Universal in the parks and stuff like that. Like they have never been able to get away from Jurassic World. It's been so
No.
it made so much money and did so well and was so apparent to everybody in the world that like Jurassic World's a thing and we all love Jurassic World. Everybody, outside of like film Twitter and stuff like that, like everybody loves Jurassic World. And it's weird to now see them trying to distance themselves like in a way while still
Yeah.
holding that title, still holding Jurassic World in their name because
Mhm.
they're not gonna demolish like the Jurassic World the ride in Hollywood or the Velocicoaster or the Beijing attraction, which looks phenomenal. So we're
Yeah.
at this weird point where it's like, how does Universal view it? That's what I'm more curious about. Like, what is their perspective on how this is aged? Because I love it. I think it's
Yeah.
great. I didn't think we needed to go necessarily to a new, like, start fresh in a new era and all that. So I'm curious more so of what they think this is aged like. Because in my mind, I'm like, they don't think it aged well at all. I guess I don't know because they're changing things up.
Yeah, yeah, changing things up, and also we haven't had any announcement about any 10th anniversary events or anything for Jurassic World, and it was without it, and without it hitting like it did, reinvigorating the franchise, we wouldn't have Rebirth. Like we would not be sitting here. So however much people might not like the films that came afterwards, Jurassic World did an incredible job of reminding people that actually people love dinosaurs. They love going to see Jurassic Park films, Jurassic
Yeah.
films.
And that's the thing that stood the test of time, right? Is Jurassic films. There's no other movies that can do it quite like them. And even if people don't like them, they're the only ones that are out there. So you kind of have to watch them if you want to
Yeah.
see dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Like there's no other options.
Yeah.
They try. Adam Driver tried.
Oh god.
Disney tried with the Good Dinosaur a while
Yeah.
back, and Dinosaur the movie a while back too. But like, and Disney's like, we don't like dinosaurs at all anymore to the point where we're going to get rid of them in their theme parks, and it's just weird. Like dinosaurs are still very relevant and still very exciting, and Jurassic has proven that. And Jurassic World, I think, like especially with the theme parks, they're really banking on that just being a very popular thing for the
Yeah.
foreseeable future. So
Mhm.
I'll be curious to like see what they do with Rebirth and where does that take us, and like how much do we distance ourselves from Jurassic World as a movie,
Hmm.
and the sequels, and do we ever get a Rebirth land somewhere in a theme park, or what kind of tie-in stuff do we get for that? Like, will there be a
Mm.
Jurassic World Rebirth live tour? Like how far
Yeah.
out there are we going, or is this like a quick, one and done kind of deal? Like, I'm
Yeah.
very curious as to what the idea is here.
Like, I'm going to really enjoy, I think, watching Rebirth, but the kind of anticipation of what's going to happen afterwards, I have absolutely no clue
Yeah.
about what's going to happen next
Well,
at all.
yeah. I mean, we've got like general, thoughts and ideas as far as what's happening
Hmm.
in the movie itself. So like we can kind of pinpoint a lot of the plot points and where they're going to head, but like ultimately, I don't know what the goal is. Like
No.
where are we going? What are we doing?
Yeah.
What's the end game for the Jurassic franchise with this new
Yeah.
era? Because
Mm.
it's not going to end. It's not going to be
No.
done.
No.
It's not going to stop there. And I know they just talked about the potential for sequels, and Gareth hasn't heard
Hmm.
anybody talking about that. And
No.
but at the same time, like I think Frank Marshall was like talking about the cast and maybe locking them up or maybe not. I don't know. Like,
Hmm.
so who really knows where they're going to go with
Who
this?
knows?
But it would, like you said, it wouldn't be here without Jurassic World. We wouldn't have gotten so much,
No.
and all the toys and merchandise and the theme parks and the live tours and the podcasts and YouTubes and the fan community, which I think is like the most important thing to come out of Jurassic World. And that's the best part that's like tested its time here is the fact that we all came together and created a really awesome community online. And
Yeah.
there's different, which I've always wanted for Jurassic. Star Wars has always been like that kind of goal, as far as like
Yeah.
what do you want? And I know the Star Wars fan community is like it's an iffy thing that you want to compare yourself to,
Hmm.
but like,
Yeah.
but in terms of like having endless fan outlets and conversation and Star Wars celebration and all that stuff, we've wanted to hit that goal, and I think
Hmm.
Jurassic World didn't fully catch us up to that speed, but we're getting there. We're really getting there. We're kind
Yeah.
of like
Yeah.
we're on the map now a little bit as a fan
Yeah.
base, which I appreciate. And it's nice that like we've been able to touch base with so many cool people over the years, and that's been my favorite part of the past 10 years and the legacy of Jurassic World.
Hmm. And yeah, I'd just like to say the Jurassic Park podcast, I do love it. It's an amazing podcast. It's lively and vibrant. And I think you're such a great host. And I'd just like to say thank you so much for joining me on my podcast as I'm just starting out.
Oh no, 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 I don't agree with anything that you said there. Basically, I feel like I'm just winging it the whole time. I don't know what I'm doing, and but I appreciate that the kind words. It's been really really fun, and gives me the opportunity to talk with people like you and so many other people over the years. It's kind of crazy. It's been 10 years now, so what a wild ride it's been.
Yeah. Have you got any kind of standouts in the past 10 years that really, like a moment that you were like, I'm really glad I'm doing this?
I mean, look, the entire thing. I just like meeting the people that I've talked to in the internet and meeting them in person,
Hmm.
being like a part of Jennifer's wedding with like that was really cool. Like I had met her through the fan community. She was a part of the show. I was in her wedding, and then like getting to do more like things like interviews with like Jurassic World live tour, and I like
Hmm.
literally did an interview on the show floor, like with a big round
Amazing.
table, and it was chaotic, and I was horrified the entire time because my equipment stopped working and I had to scramble to get it to work, but it was still like an awesome experience. And there's been some just great interviews and things over the years that I'm really proud of and excited by. So yeah, it's been so many like things all together, friendships and professional experiences and Mattel or somebody sending me something that it's just like really awesome
Mm.
to, and then to pass that on to like my kids too, who they
Yeah.
see me doing this and they get excited when like a new package shows up and they want to unbox it with me, and I'm like, all right, whatever, let's go ahead and do it. So like it's really cool for me to be able to do that with them and share Jurassic with them in these
Yeah.
past few years.
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you so much for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure to relive, Jurassic World. And just to say that You are fantastic at doing what you're doing, I think, and you and Tom, you have such a great chemistry together.
Tom.
It's all the podcasts, to be honest, every single one has something that's different, and I love opening up my podcast app and seeing one of them pop up, and I mean, right, okay, that's my train journey sorted.
Yeah, well, that's what I wanted. I wanted something that was accessible for so many people, all families, kids, adults, to kind of hit that middle ground where people can all kind of enjoy it. And I was a big fan back in, the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull days when that movie came out. The IndieCast, I still am. I still listen to them all the time. But the IndieCast was a model for me. I was like, man, they do it so well, where they have anybody from the fan community be a part of the show. And I really loved that. And I was like, Jurassic needs that. So that's why I was like, all right, let's finally do it. I waited too long, and I was just like, all right, now's the time. Let's give people like Tom, like Aaron, and Jay, there's so many people out there that have been involved in the show. Let's give them an outlet to do something. And even Connor recently, more so with the Dino DNA segments, that's not anything I could ever do. And I like having people like that can have those conversations. They're basically having their own podcasts, and then I'm just putting it out. I'm just the person to upload it. That's about it. And I like being that person that can just kind of showcase whatever's happening, talk about whatever's going on, but also give other people a voice,
Great. So where can people find you online?
Well, JurassicParkPodcast.com is the main spot there. So go find us over there, and you can find all of the, Spotify, Apple Podcast links, YouTube. We do live streams every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. EST here in New Jersey. So, and then recently we've been doing more so a first Thursday because of the Beyond the Gates drops and stuff like that. So you can find us over on YouTube live streaming. And I also do 2 other shows. So I do the Force Cast. So we talk about Star Wars. We're really getting into Andor currently. I do a theme park podcast. Did I say what it was? It was the Force Cast. I do a theme park podcast that's called Grim Grinning Hosts, where we talk about Universal, we talk about Disney and all that stuff. So that's a great episode or show. And that's about it. You can just find me in all those places there.
Amazing. Well, I'd just like to say again, thank you so much. And we'll have to have a chat maybe once Rebirth comes out.
Yes, absolutely. Let's do it. Yeah, and you got to come on our show at some point too.
My huge thanks to Brad for that conversation. I love talking to him. It is so much fun. I really hope that we can talk in the future once Rebirth is out. If you like what I do here on this podcast, please leave me a review and a rating on Apple Podcasts. It really does help this show find a bigger audience. And again, thank you so much to everybody that has sent some really nice and touching messages about how much they're actually enjoying this show in the lead up to watching the new film. I can feel all your excitement. My excitement is growing as well. And I've still got so many episodes and amazing guests to bring you as well. Next time, I'm talking to Samantha Endres, and we are discussing Fallen Kingdom. Please let me know your thoughts about Fallen Kingdom over on my Instagram page at Road to Rebirth Pod. But until next time, I'll say thank you very much for listening, and goodbye.